Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. My name is Darragh Connor. Welcome to our stream, guys, as well. We were finally able to stream again properly, and it is a pleasure to have you here this evening. My name is Darragh Connor. I am not joined by Dave. We don't know where Dave is. He'll be back eventually. He sends his love. But we are joined by the one and only, the reigning, defending, undefeated Mr. Martin Herty. Martin, how are you, sir?
Just living like a champion, you know yourself. Just every day is another victory.
Well, it's well earned, sir. It's well earned. We have a lot to get through this week. This week, of course, is the week of Revolution. So we'll be talking about that as well, man. There's so much to get through this week before we actually get into it. But before we do, how have you been?
Grand. You know, like you say, it's been a busy couple of weeks for if you're a wrestling fan. So I've a page of notes here. I don't know if we'll get through it all, but we'll take a crack at it.
Absolutely. Like, it's by going to the past, which we normally do, and that's totally cool, and it's kind of our wheelhouse. But sometimes we have to jump into the future and now, or the present, as it were.
Well, particularly when we're the ones who called it. The big news this week, we'll get to it, but we called it months ago.
We did. And let's just start there because it is the huge news. So first things first, it was supposed to be AEW had the announcement, right? They're like, what's going on? And we're like, yeah, man, this doesn't smell right to me. And sure enough, Tony Khan came out, and not only did they buy the tape library, not only did they buy the All Out or something, they bought the whole effing thing.
Enchilada.
The whole lot. So as you can see here on the screen, folks, AEW have bought Ring of Honor.
And the question now is, like the dog chasing the car. Now they've caught it. What did they do with it?
Well, that's it. You know, it opens up a whole. I did really enjoy the Shane McMahon thing where he's like, "No, Shane's not coming." No, it's just.
Is it Tony? He's so weird because I actually love him on the. Do you know the post-show kind of media scrum they do?
Yeah.
But whenever he tries to do any kind of wrestling promos, he's such a goofball.
Oh man, it's so awkward. It was just so you could tell that like he's not comfortable, but that's totally fine too. And it's
kind of endearing.
Yeah, man. I was just like, I don't particularly like him, but I thought this was kind of funny, and that line kind of killed me a little bit. I was like, this is great. But look, it wasn't a surprise. We called it, like literally almost to the week. We said this is what's going to happen, and it did. So news broke on Wednesday. They had an announcement, and it's like it has to be this. You know, some people were like, well, they're probably going to buy the tape library, and after the tape library, they're gonna, you know, they might buy All Out. Yeah, because obviously that was All In. Sorry, was the first pay-per-view that would become AEW, but there was no AEW, so
yeah,
it was run by Ring of Honor.
Well, it made so much sense. Like when you think about it, like there's all this talk about AEW setting up, you know, some sort of network or streaming service in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
they have, you know, they're going to want that back library of classic, you know, Punk matches, Danielson matches, like and there's even talk in terms of the streaming service that they're also looking at not buying but doing a kind of a deal with PWG. So it's basically the whole elite history that they're picking up.
A couple of years ago, I think this would have made more sense for WWE to pick up, but now there's no real reason. Like, why would they need it? Why would they? You know, they don't want to draw attention to anyone who isn't, you know, the cartoons that eventually they're going to make, voiced by Roman Reigns. But
well, yeah, like why would they why would they want to show everybody how great Danielson is, how great Punk is? Like it doesn't make sense for them to do, and also it's just not in their kind of worldview. You know, it's WWE and that's it. There are no outside entities.
Exactly, and look, that's fair enough. You know, as far as what WWE want to do, they can do it. You know, but what's interesting about this move is it's now quasi created an alternative of non-WWE. Like anything that isn't WWE is going to probably be on here eventually if it is a streaming service. There are some talks that it's probably going to go on
HBO
HBO.
Max.
Yeah, I heard it from the Observer. Observer were pretty much laying it out, and they're like, yeah, it's going to go on HBO Max, which we don't have, but
yeah,
I
that
don't know how
was.
it's going to work here.
I suppose they could end up with a network style situation where that's their deal in North America, and then in the rest of the world they just have like an AEW streaming service.
Now, if I was AEW, and I'm not, but what I would do is I would link up with Impact and do a licensing thing where, imagine that, dude. You have AEW, ROH, and Impact on one streaming service.
I'm with you, man. I would.
That's incredible. That's
pull
such
in
good value.
PWG, CZW,
and I'd pay it. I'd genuinely pay it. I'd pay at least what I'm paying for the network for that, because that is such good value.
Yeah, and it makes sense because they don't ban their wrestlers from working with other companies. It makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you have John Moxley's CZW cage match on it? You know, So I think what they could build is a real, genuine wrestling alternative. Like, this is where the wrestling happens. You know, this is where you get from your major AEW pay-per-views down to your smaller indie shows.
Yeah,
and it's good for them in terms of
but I mean,
wrestlers.
If you're sitting there, like, Ring of Honor had this, like, people are going to see Ring of Honor who've never seen Ring of Honor before because it was hard to find. Like, over here it's almost impossible to find. AEW to a certain extent is pretty hard to find now and then. I mean legitimately, and Impact is literally impossible to find legitimately. In lots of ways. So you kind of have to find other ways around it. And I think, wouldn't it be really cool to have something where you can just have there, where the shows are uploaded, you can get the pay-per-views, and you're given this stream of content, which not only take the legality out of it, because that's one thing, but I mean the accessibility. Like, if you're just sitting there and going, right, I want to watch, the Impact show. Like, I watched No Surrender 2 weeks ago. Brilliant show. Really, really good show. Very hard to find. Very, very hard to find. Now, I would gladly pay for that on some kind of streaming service that also included the weekly shows or whatever. That wasn't Impact. The Impact app is actually quite good, but I mean, the appeal of it is limited. Opening up, and I have used it, and I do use it, and it is quite cool, but the appeal of it is quite limited to a wider audience. If you're saying, right, random wrestling fan who just knows WWE, right, who just has the network, who maybe is disillusioned, wouldn't it make more sense to have an app that has that in it, and you can just go, right, for €15 a month, you get all the back history of all the favorite top stars of not only AEW, but like, you can get AJ Styles, you can get Seth Rollins, you can get Moxley, you can get all that kind of stuff as well, but also Impact Wrestling, who are still doing shows, Ring of Honor, who aren't dead, because this is another part of this story. They're not dead, they're still going on, so you still get their shows, and I think that would bring in a whole new audience that might not specifically be like we are with the WWE Network. We're not particularly WWE fans anymore, but we're still subscribed to network for WCW, ECW content, Dragon Gate. This is
Bret Hart matches.
No, but this is kind of the way to do it. And here's the thing, I would even expand out further. Like WWA, we've talked about on the show many times. Why not just buy WWA's type library? Actually build. If you want to be a competition to WWE, be that competition, but be it in such a way that Vince doesn't consider anything that isn't WWE competition or that nearly beat WWE competition. Cool, use that for your advantage. Actually go and build a competitor to the WWE network that makes it worth buying. And what I mean by that is, if you're an AEW fan, you're going to buy it. I wouldn't buy an AEW app, but I would buy an AEW app if it had these extra elements, because it would be beneficial for me, because I can go and watch my Impact Wrestling shows. And also, again, everybody benefits. Think of it as a Netflix approach. I don't know if you remember, man, but remember when Netflix first came out, and the reason why you got Netflix was because it had everything.
I'm that old. I remember when Netflix used to post the DVDs.
All right, remember when it first came out on streaming, and everybody originally got it because it had everything. No matter what you wanted to watch, it was there, and that's kind of not true anymore.
Before they did this bloody regional mapping thing where you can only see stuff in certain countries.
Well, not even that. Like, geo-blocking's always been a thing, but I mean, if you wanted to watch The Office, you could watch The Office. If you wanted to watch The Simpsons, you could watch The Simpsons. If you wanted to watch Daredevil, it was there. And now they're all broken off into like Disney and Amazon and with wrestling. But with wrestling, if you have the WWE network, and instead of all these other little apps, you just have one other one that's that's a similar size behemoth.
Yep. The only outlier, I think, I think they could pull in all those smaller independents, and those like shows like CZW and that will be mad not to do it.
Yeah.
The only outlier, I think, will be New Japan.
Well, New Japan is completely different.
They have their own streaming network. By all accounts, it does quite well.
Yeah.
So even though there's a level of crossover there, I wouldn't expect New Japan to be on it.
Well, New Japan is the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, so they're fine.
Yeah,
they're fine. They don't need the West. They genuinely don't. But I mean, for North America, for European, as far as I'm concerned, WWE, and most people would be concerned, WWE have kind of given up the wrestling thing. They're just WWE.
Yeah. So, that's the way. It's not even given up. That's the way they want it.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, like, there's no room for someone else to step in and go, right, well, you don't want to do the wrestling thing. We can. And that's what AEW are doing.
Like, and I think Tony Khan is genuinely the man to do it, because love him or hate him, I don't think anyone would deny that he's not just a huge wrestling fan. Like, the dude loves the industry, like genuinely loves it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, he is, like, for all the stuff that I will give him and the hard time I will give him, he doesn't strike me like he's trying to do this in any bad way. There's no malice in him. He's not trying to get himself over. He just genuinely likes wrestling.
Yeah, I think he just wants to preserve, like, there's a huge wrestling history out there that WWE just doesn't cover, and I think he just wants to preserve that.
I just think WWE just doesn't want to cover it. They just don't care. They're like, we're WWE, we're going to do what we want, and either you like it or you don't.
Yeah, and like, again, that's fair enough. I mean, that's their... I don't necessarily like... I mean, they're kind of competition, but I don't really agree with the claim that AEW and WWE are competition. I think at this stage, they're just two completely different things.
Yeah, no. And I see, I think that's the appeal of a streaming service like this, because, it's literally not the WWE. It's everything in the WWE that you normally wouldn't expect to see, because they don't do that kind of stuff. It's their own thing. So again,
and it means we can go back and review classic Ring of Honor shows now.
Yeah, and also Impact shows and all that kind of good stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it makes the most sense in the world, and fair play to AEW for doing it, because it's very forward thinking. Now, so this obviously is the biggest news. It's the biggest.
Well, just before we go off it, something I wanted to raise with you.
Yeah.
So that they haven't revealed how much money they spent on it. I've heard everything from 10 million to 60 million.
I don't think it's 60 million. Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine so either. But I'm just saying that's what's been put out there.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, no matter what way you cut it, that Ring of Honor cost more than WCW. And that's mental.
Well, that's because WCW had no value when it was sold. When Ring of Honor still had value. It still had a name, it still had a TV show, it still had options. WCW didn't. WCW was dead, and that's what they were saying. It was effectively worthless, because, like, to be fair, man, you could have got a loan from the bank ourselves and bought WCW. Like, legitimately,
Eric Bischoff wanted to.
That's what nearly happened, and it's just because it had no value. Like, with Ring of Honor, they're still doing shows. They're still Ring of Honor. They're just bought by someone else. And that's one thing to mention. Like, it's a very good point. It's a very good point that I wasn't even thinking of. Ring of Honor are still existing as Ring of Honor and still
It's
doing
not
shows.
AEW's Ring
No.
of Honor or AEW present. It's not WWE ECW or anything like that.
It's just Ring of Honor. Like, yes, they own the assets. Yes, they own the library. Yes, they own the IP. But apparently, the plan is to just continue on. Actually, it's very funny. I don't know if you listen to independent music, but Bandcamp is where you would where lots of independent bands would put music. It's where my band stuff is as well. And something happened this week.
The night I won the Bard of Armagh on Bandcamp, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gas. But basically, the thing about Bandcamp is it was bought by Epic Games this week.
Oh, wow.
So, and the email that everybody got was, it's going to continue on like normal. So, I mean, like, it's not changing. It's just owned by a corporation. And I think
so do you think that's what'll happen? Like, because a lot of people are talking about Ring of Honor being like their new developmental, and I think that kind of does it a disservice.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see a lot more crossover. Because if there's one thing AEW needs, it's their guys, especially the lower level guys, the people they're building up. They really just need reps. They need to be out doing shows in front of audiences, and I mean, this makes sense.
Well, see, I think with WWE now fully closing up shop to the whole wrestling thing, and I'm not being dismissive, WWE don't really care about the wrestling. It's not a thing for them. It's more WWE. And territories closing, NXT not being that place anymore. And also WWE just not... And they are the biggest wrestling company in the world. They always probably will be until they decide they don't want to be anymore. And what's interesting about that is they kind of dictated, right, well, where are people going to work? So having Ring of Honor there as your feeder system where that goes into Impact and Impact goes to AEW. I think that's kind of what you'll see going forward, where they have this feeder system but with TV the whole way through, where you're wrestling in a bingo hall or whatever, or independent shows, or you go to Japan then you come back. There's somewhere for you to go. There's two very distinctive places to start off, indie, mid-tier, before you go to AEW, and then you're there. What they've done is they've effectively cut WWE out of the picture by just doing what WWE you would think should be doing, but they don't. So,
No,
I tell you, man, sorry for interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
I can see Triple H genuinely showing up one day and be like, can I just run this? Because I think that would happen.
Triple H shows up on AEW while Cody's on WWE.
Well, that's our next story. So so let's move on to the next story. So the next story comes our way from 2 weeks ago, and from the New York Post. The New York Post reporting Cody Rhodes leaves AEW with WWE return likely.
But the latest news today is that and this is the quote from Dave Meltzer, that the talks between Cody and WWE have fizzled out.
Yes. So Martin,
nobody knows where he's.
I don't think he's going to WWE, my friend. Like, I really want him to, so he'll be Stardust again. But I don't know. I think he made enough money. Okay, look, there's one or two ways this could play out, right? It wasn't a work. It was real. Apparently what happened was, according to the Observer, who they pretty much went through it, Solid Monster also did it as well. Apparently it was a pay dispute, right? Where what more than likely happened was he saw the money that Daniel Bryan was getting, that CM Punk was getting, and then was like, I want that money. That wasn't given, and he walked. Now what's interesting is Cody had creative control in his contract, which is always a bad idea. He was an executive level as well. He was, and apparently a lot of people.
He had two bloody TV shows on.
He did.
TNT.
His wife had a contract as well, which
his wife, and all the best to her, but nobody bloody wants her anywhere.
Mind-boggling that she had a career. But look, he had it pretty much made, and apparently that's what it came down to. It came down to he felt slighted because Punk came in, Daniel Bryan came in, and he thought he was worth more. And it's like, no, Cody, you're not.
And
it's not.
I agree with you. And I'm saying that as a guy who loves Cody.
Yeah,
I think he's awesome.
But I mean, dude, he's never going to be like. I don't know how much Punk is getting paid. I didn't look into the deal, but you have to imagine it's a good payday. It's a good payday. Same with Danny O'Brien. Same with any Adam Cole or Adam Page or any of the big names, even Jericho, right? So
yeah. Jericho's on ridiculous money.
Like,
he really shaped up and got himself into shape.
Yeah, he looks great.
Contracts came around.
Yeah, he looks really good. But the thing about it is, it's like with Cody, I can understand why he felt probably a bit slight, but it's a weird move to make, man. And the only move I can think of with WWE before today's news was he's expecting a big paycheck. They will give it to him because they have the money, and they also have, you know, the optics of, oh, we sold someone, we won over, we got someone from AEW.
Well, the problem with Cody going to WWE is how do WWE present him? Because if WWE, but the genuine problem is if WWE present it as a big deal, as in we got the main guy from AEW, then what you're saying is AEW is real viable competition.
Yeah.
So there's no way of bringing Cody in as a big deal without acknowledging that AEW is a big deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can do it the way they always do it. He's been a champion all around the world. He's a journeyman wrestler who's been to Japan and, you know, all around the U.S. Florida. He spends a lot of time in Florida. You know, and they can do it that way, where that is the way WWE do it.
And the worst part is that if they actually acknowledged it, they could make a hell of a storyline out of it, you know? They could have, like, Cody coming back and, like, saying he's here for his father's legacy and all. Like, they could make a genuine, brilliant storyline out of it. But it would require them to acknowledge the world outside WWE.
Well, again, if they were going to do it, that's the way they'd do it. They'd be like, who was it that it was one of the TNA guys during the height of TNA's run where they were like, yeah, and he was in Florida. It's just like, okay.
And the worst part is everybody knows. Like,
why? They were on the same show when that happened. This was like 2008. There were literally TNA chants. You know, it's like, we know. They know. You know, they reference it, you know, and it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, man, like, fair enough. But
it reminds me of soap operas where they'll, like, go to the pub, and because they don't have, like, there's whatever copyright issues, they'll go up to the bar and they'll order, "I'll have a pint."
Yeah.
Pint of what?
Pint of what? What are you talking about? You know, or same again or whatever. You know,
or beer. Just generic beer.
Just generic beer. But yeah, man, like, as you know, from what all the outlets are reporting, it does seem like that was the sus, right? Now, the wrinkle in it, and look, it would make sense. He's going off to get money. He wants the big payday. And look, you know, WWE can do it, man. Why not? Now, the wrinkle in this is what you said, where talks have broken down. Mm-hmm. And here's my prediction. I'm going to put my prediction hat on for a moment. It's the same hat. I'm going to leave it on.
It's been lucky for you so far.
Exactly. It's looking for me so hard. So, right. If it's not a work, right, which it's not, there is the option that Cody could have, like, Tony Khan could go to Cody and go, look, we have the storyline now with Ring of Honor. It's going to be some kind of invasion thing. Would you be interested in doing that? Readjust the money, bring him in that way, and it's all water under the bridge. The other thing, which would be cool, not going to lie, it's very likely, I do think they're going to do some kind of ROH invasion at some point. They're going to do some kind of crossover.
Is that wise, do you think?
No, it's really not. I really hope they don't. But
like a crossover, sure.
They've referenced it, though.
Invasion.
The fact Tony Khan brought up Shane means they're aware of it, and means that it's probably something they've at least considered. And I would say do not do an invasion. Invasions never go well.
Well, just look at the WCW invasion. I mean, it flopped because it didn't have the big names. And I have no doubt that Ring of Honor has, like, technically some of the best wrestlers in the world, but they don't have big names.
No, all their names are in WWE. You know, they're the main events of WWE.
So, like, nobody's getting hyped for
AEW.
You know, if Moxley's out cutting a promo, and the next thing the music plays, and then I don't even Jay Lethal walks out. Don't get
me wrong, I like Jay Lethal a lot, but no,
Yeah, it's not the showdown that everyone's been clamoring for. You know,
it would be different if Tyler Black walked out, who was Seth Rollins and before WWE. If Tyler Black walked out, yeah, that would be cool. That's never happening until Dean Ambrose comes back to WWE, if that makes sense. So
that's never happening.
No, it's not. So I mean, like, there are these dream matches that exist, but sadly, the dream matches are either main event in AEW right now or the lads that are in WWE. Which actually, Finn Balor recently won the US title, so he's doing something again. So he's not leaving. So even he can't come over. So it's like an invasion is a bad move, which is why when I've heard now from rumblings on the internet that Cody's going to lead the invasion, and I'm like, really think about that. Like, really think about what that means. That's not something you want.
I don't think there's going to be an invasion.
I really hope
because
not.
It's one thing. Like, everybody knows Tony bought it, but it's canon now. Tony walked out on Dynamite and said, "I have bought Ring of Honor."
Yeah.
So it's not even that there could be it's not a rival promotion anymore.
No.
It would be Tony's company invading Tony's company. So yeah. I think we're safe enough on the invasion front. But certainly you could do some really hot angles where.
No, but this is what I'm saying though. What I'm saying with Cody, people want Cody to lead the Ring of Honor faction so he can come back and win the belt, and I'm like, that's reaching. That's really, really reaching. And look, I know some people are fans of Cody and still don't. People still think this is a work. It's really not a work.
Here's the thing.
It really isn't.
There is a certain percentage of me. I think work is the wrong term, but there is a certain part of me thinks Cody is pulling a Brian Pillman.
He's not. He's not. Meltzer and everything is just like, no, this is legit. I know. Legit as anything.
Everything says I'm wrong, and if I stop and think about it, I go, yeah, that's. But I just can't help it. He's such a wrestling, historian, and he's so into it. There's just a wee part of me still thinks.
But you know what he's into more? Himself.
Yeah.
And the fact, I would buy the fact that money thing did, and that seems to be the prevailing story. And I'm like, it sucks. I don't I think his career was a lot better in AEW because he could kind of do anything. That neck tattoo though, if he does get money, that neck tattoo has to go. That's the worst tattoo I've ever seen in my life.
The thing awful about AEW was he was on the verge of, I think, one of the greatest heel turns ever.
Yeah.
It would have been. And the fact that he kept denying it and not giving it, I think the moment he turned, he would have been the biggest heel on the planet.
But here's the thing as well. He had creative control. He won't have that when he goes to WWE, if he goes to WWE.
Not a chance.
Mark my words, he'll be Stardust in under a year.
Yeah, well, what was it? I was listening to something today, and they said, Cody will go to WWE, he'll win the US title, and then he'll be on the pre-show of SummerSlam.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen because that's where they see him.
Yeah,
that's where they see him. And I respect what he did. That he did kind of start the biggest wrestling promotion to fight WWE ever, next to WCW. But it's also like, oh, you threw it all away, and you threw it all away for no reason. I wish it was a work, because then it's just like, oh, we all got worked. Isn't it great? Wrestling's the best. But it just seems to be a case of where it's just like,
it reminds me, the money issue reminds me a wee bit of Bret Hart when he didn't actually want to go to WCW, but Eric Bischoff kept pushing him and kept saying, look, name a number, I'll get you the money. And he told him, I want Hogan's deal plus 1 penny.
Again, dude, wrestling
reminds me a wee bit of that.
Wrestling is so petty, and we forget how petty wrestling is, but it really, really is. It is petty as anything. Anyway, so that's Cody Rhodes, right? Before we go to Revolution, which is coming up everybody's way this weekend, we have to kind of switch gears here a little bit and talk about the weird fantasy world that is WWE, where nothing makes any sense.
Austin is coming back. Vince is apparently fighting at WrestleMania, and Taker's in the Hall of Fame.
So these stories come your way from WrestleView.com, our friends over at WrestleView.com. Vince McMahon to induct The Undertaker in WWE's Hall of Fame. which is very weird. Shane McMahon, of course, fired from WWE. Uh, Still no update of where he actually is. Apparently, he's coming back to WWE, but we don't know. That is the rumor.
Why?
I don't think so.
Nobody wants him there.
No, I don't think. Considering the reaction to his booking of the Royal Rumble, I can firmly say that's false. Rest of you also seems to think it's false.
And do you know what? That was so stupid because people actually did like, Shane would show up once a year. He'd jump off something really tall.
Yes.
There'd be a pop, and
Yes.
People were happy with that. But the fact that his booking of the Royal Rumble it's an episode on its own. Like he came in and he outpunched an actual MMA fighter. Like
it's crazy. Looking at these headlines as well, there's so much going on. Obviously, WWE terminated from Russia, which is a whole other thing that's going on.
Oh God, yeah, world's ending.
Well, wrestling is strange in and of itself, but it seems like this is another thing that's kicking off. Triple H.
How long before they do a Russia-Ukraine angle like they did with the
oh my God,
Dinger and Desert Storm?
Well, here's the thing. I was actually thinking that. I was thinking of Miro. Miro must be like, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not there. They would have me doing this, but also, it's kind of funny, like with WCW pay-per-views, World War III. It's like no. You won't be able to do that show,
Well, Miro's Bulgarian, isn't he?
Yeah, but they did the whole.
Well, I mean, come on, they had a Yokozuna was from Samoa, so they don't care.
But one thing I did want to talk about, so it seems like this kind of stuff is seeping in now to wrestling as well. So it's one of those stories that are kicking off, and also Triple H has quietly retired this week, which was.
Is that like he's properly?
Well, he can't wrestle anymore. His heart.
Oh, but I mean, has he retired?
Retired. Yeah,
WWE.
Yeah. Well, no. So obviously he isn't like gone from WWE, but yet it might be happening. But he is gone from the ring. So the report I read is that he is from WrestlingView.com. All these stories we're talking about right now are from WrestlingView.com. They said that he's pretty much done. But I can see a Hall of Fame maybe in 2 years, because like Undertaker now is probably the big one. Actually, maybe next year, because you haven't really got anybody next year. So it'll probably Triple H next year.
Do you think with the Undertaker going in, and so I think he's going to be the only one inducted this year, isn't he?
That's what reports initially were saying. They're kind of doing it the way they did it with Andre the Giant.
Yeah,
but yeah, apparently I've also had reports from Sportkedia that they were going to bring people in sooner, like they're going to start announcing names. But that was supposed to be last week, and they haven't done it yet. So maybe it's just him.
But do you think with Taker being such a big name and still being around, because some of the biggest names who go in are people who've sadly passed, do you think this might be the impetus they need to actually make a Hall of Fame? I mean, as it is, the Hall of Fame is kind of it's kind of nothing. It doesn't really exist.
Well, look,
do you think this might be what the push they need to actually make like a? Because like I have a ton of issues with WWE, as I'm sure what listeners well know. But man, if there was an actual Hall of Fame I could go to, I would be there tomorrow.
What I don't understand is they have two big facilities, and I'm right there with you. I'll be there, and when they do build it, I'll be there as well. They have two big facilities, and they have two different areas. Now, doing it in Connecticut makes no sense because it's corporate and it doesn't really fit, But in Florida, it makes sense because people go to Florida anyway to go to this kind of stuff. So you build it in Florida, in a big warehouse, even next to the performance center. There you go. Take all the stuff that you have from the what's that place called where they store everything?
Oh, Titan Tower? No, that's the old offices. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's the storage facility they have, and it's a good show on A&E actually, the American channel A&E, where they want to buy stuff like the Undertaker's mask or Mick Foley's mask or some ring gear or anything like that. If they just
wouldn't you love to be able to walk around it?
But see, that's what I mean. Why don't they just do a museum with the Hall of Fame, where it's like we have all this stuff in one place, and you can actually go and visit it. Look, they could charge ridiculous money, and people would still go.
What wrestling fan wouldn't pay to get a picture of themselves by the SmackDown fist?
Oh man, like seriously,
people would love that.
But think about it, and then for the Hall of Fame, you can actually have a Hall of Fame and have all their gear there.
Exactly.
It's just
and
like
it'd be
amazing.
It baffles me that it's something they haven't done.
But here's the thing, right? You could build almost a WWE park, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's in Florida. Like, I do it in Florida because that's what you're going to you're going to Disneyland anyway. You're going to Universal anyway. Spend a couple of days in around it. So what I'd do is I'd have the Hall of Fame, I'd have the WWE Museum, and then you can have even WWE Florida, as in like literally like the restaurant. Yeah. And then there you go. That's ridiculous money. That's just easy money that people would go to, because of course they would. 100%. Why wouldn't you?
100%.
And then you can do your shows from there as well. You can have a show a year. Like, but again, man, that requires wanting to give back to the fans, and WWE just seem to be happy to be WWE, make loads of money. I don't know why they don't do it, guys. If you're listening and you know why they don't do it, let me know.
I bet you they will do it, but they'll build it in Saudi Arabia.
Well, here's the thing. I travel to Saudi Arabia to go to that, because it's like, if that's what's going to make them do it, absolutely. Because look, man, even though I wouldn't consider myself a huge modern WWE fan, and I'm not, like, we're not, like, this show looks at stuff from 20 years ago for a reason, I'd still go. I'd love it. I'd be all over it. And that A&E show actually is very, very good, because it actually covers a lot of stuff that we talk about week to week. So
and come here.
Yeah, go on.
So as a kind of a segue, as someone who isn't a huge modern fan, but obviously like myself, you've a massive graw for the older days.
Absolutely.
What do you make of Austin coming back? Again, this is something like Cody that has not actually been said.
When I interviewed him, I'm going to find that interview and I'm going to put it on retransmission. I interviewed Stone Cold, yeah. So it's on our YouTube channel. I'm going to repost it. I'm going to put it on retransmission on the podcast. So if you're subscribed to us on the podcast, you guys will get it. And I asked him about it, and he said no. So it's like, obviously something changed, and I don't believe it until I see it, but I still really want to see it. I just do.
Well, here's the thing. See, after the Royal Rumble, I was like, I'm not paying for WrestleMania. I'm not watching that. Like, man, I would watch WrestleMania to see, like, even if he just comes out, does the music, bounces around a bit, does a stunner, 3 minutes, and it's over. Man, I'd still want to see that.
Yeah, man. Like, as I said, Austin is just Austin. It's like The Rock, The Undertaker. The Undertaker shouldn't have retired when he did, once they figured out the cinematic thing, because that's something they didn't really tap into, and they really should have done that more. Austin's style is a lot less heavy. As you said, 3 minutes, does his introduction, beer everywhere, stun someone, or does 1 or 2 moves, stun, that's it. And then beer everywhere, and everyone's happy.
Even brawl around the ring, like you say, like, I'm sure he can still brawl. But obviously, like, Austin changed up his whole wrestling style after his neck broke anyway.
Yeah.
Like, he made a hell of a career out of not really wrestling all that much.
Yeah, like punch kick, stunner. It's like, that works.
Yeah. He could do, like, there's no reason he couldn't, even like 3 minutes. There's no reason he couldn't have 10 minutes with Kevin Owens. Batter him around the ring, stomp a mud hole, throw the finger up to the crowd, like, smash him with a beer can, drop a stunner. Like, it'd be huge.
Yeah, like, but it is something, again, that WWE should have probably, like, you can actually wrestle those styles without taking a lot of punishment. Like the cinematic match as well. Again, this is a hill I'll die on. Undertaker did not have to retire. The cinematic match was the way to vacuum seal the Undertaker for the next 5 to 10 years. And even Sting, him and Sting could have had a cinematic match where none of them got hurt, and the whole thing was just a spectacle, and it'd be great.
What WWE did with Sting is an episode on its own.
Oh, stop. And it might actually have to be. If you want
to see Sting wrestle this Sunday, baby.
I don't want to see Sting. The only person I want to see Sting wrestle is The Undertaker.
He's brilliant. I can't believe how good Sting is.
Sting's the best. But I've already...
60. He's class.
Dude, when we get into the TNA shows, you're going to see how good Sting is. Sting is the best. And he always has been. But here's the thing. The Undertaker, that's a match that just needs to happen. and I think eventually will happen, but I don't know where or when. So
I think it's like so many like missed opportunities that if things had been different, they could have matched out. But I think it's one of those things we'll never see. It's like I would give my left arm to see Bryan Danielson versus Bret Hart. Like that would just be.
Well, that's slightly different.
Never gonna happen.
That's slightly different. I would more consider it to be Danielson and Benoit. Danielson
well, that's definitely never gonna
or Danielson and Guerrero, where it's like they're closer together and the missed opportunity is just slightly there. Like, but the difference is Sting and The Undertaker were in the same company at the same time, and
it's
still didn't happen.
And again, like this is a whole episode on its own, but Vince, even 20 years after beating WCW, he still had that. He just couldn't let any of the former WCW guys get ahead, you know. And it's to his self-detriment. Like, Sting should have been huge in WWE.
Well, Sting was already huge. Sting was Sting, you know, at the end. Like, but I mean, when it comes to WrestleMania, like right now, if I was booking the card, I'd be like, look, Taker's going in. Have Sting come out. Like, get him from AEW. Be like, look, Sting, we'll give you as much money as you want to come in for one night, and then you go back to AEW if you want. Well, here's $5 million, right? Come back, and then we'll let you go. But we'll let you go back to Florida.
Do you think Nick Khan? Like, you have to remember, one company is run by someone who genuinely loves wrestling, and they're both called Khan. One company's run by a guy who genuinely loves wrestling. The other is run by a goddamn accountant.
No, man. But here's the thing: instead if I was running it, right, what I'd be like, right, I'd be like, that dump truck full of money, drive it to Sting's house and go. We just need you for one night, and you go back. You go back. We don't need you after. But and then I just
as well. It's something AEW would probably agree to.
That AEW would do it. They would 100% do it because they're like, yeah, we want to see it. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just such a horrible shame that where WWE is, where he just won't be cool for like 5 minutes just to do something like that, you know? Because again, nothing exists outside WWE except WWE, and you're like, it's such a horrible shame because you can do these mad things.
Here, looking like myself, someone who's sort of followed wrestling for 30 years. Like, looking 10, 20, 30 years into the future, what do you see the future of like AEW and WWE being? Like, do you think one will overtake the other?
Yeah,
do you think they'll remain separate?
No, I think WWE, again, man, I think we're pretty much spot on with our prediction. WWE is going to be that brand that is wrestling. Sorry, that is the public perception of wrestling. Let me quantify. Where you go, you know, a mom takes her 2 kids, the dad goes and they watch it or whatever, and then, you know, that's it.
People who don't follow wrestling don't actually say wrestling, they say WWE.
Exactly, and it's always going to be that until WWE stops, right? That's what, dude, most people call WWE WWF.
Still,
they go wrestling WWF, right? So that's where it is, and that's
only those are the days.
Oh yeah, but that's the battle WWE, that's the AEW has, or any company that isn't WWE has, right? However, I do eventually see AEW taking over WWE in a sense of that's what you actually watch in a wrestling standpoint. Like, when you want to watch wrestling, more people are aware of it. It's that kind of thing that you watch for wrestling rather than for the show. And AEW is getting better, but what if WWE keeps going in this trajectory where they're not building stars and they're not actually providing a future, then there won't be one.
I don't see them coming together. I see the opposite. I see them just getting further and further apart. And WWE will become its own thing. And like we were talking about earlier, the Ring of Honor and this AEW network, I think, is the start. That's where the wrestling will be. So that'll be where you go for your wrestling, and WWE will be where you go for your WWE. And it'll have its movies and its TV shows and all the other stuff.
But if they do ever come together, they won't exist together. One will go. And one will go.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if AEW buys WWE in like 10 years, why would they want WWE around? They wouldn't.
Well, even as it's a publicly, I don't even think you can buy it now. It's a publicly.
Oh, you can buy it. You just got to buy all the shares. You just got to buy all the shares. You can buy it. You just got to buy all those shares. Yeah.
As rich as the cans are, that might even be beyond.
Yeah,
beyond them.
I think it's a bit much, but like, WWE's biggest problem is that it still can't decide It can't reconcile that to a wrestling company.
Come here.
AEW's biggest strength is that it loves that it's a wrestling company.
That's and that's kind of also it's simultaneously its strength and its weakness. That's what makes the people who love it so much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that is a limited audience. That's not
and that's the
broad
thing.
appeal
Yeah,
thing.
and that's the thing. And that's why you have to kind of go all in and build this
Hey.
yeah, build this kind of this new superstructure around it.
Yeah.
To facilitate the fact that this is the place to go for everything that isn't WWE. It has to become that, or else it won't draw on the audience. Because, you want the Impacts, you want the Ring of Honor, you want the New Japan, you want the CZW. Having that fractured means it's always going to be fractured, and you're always going to get that limited audience. Because again, I will not buy an AEW app or streaming service.
I am telling you, you're going to be all elite.
But if they have Impact on it, I would. Absolutely. And I totally would.
Be mad not to agree to something like that.
And I totally would. And if they had, I'm like, because it just makes sense. It's just logical business. It's like, look, how much do you want for this? And then go for it.
Talking to things, I'm going to scoot here just for 2 seconds, so I'll let you talk. But I'm just going to tee up before I do. Talking to things that are illogical and don't make sense. What's your take on 72-year-old Vince McMahon stepping into the ring for WrestleMania?
Oh man, so when Martin's away there for a second, it's that's crazy, folks. Like I don't know what you guys think. I don't know if you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, but personally for me, I'm like, yeah, I just don't understand that. I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me. I can't see how anyone can think that Vince McMahon is going to do anything other than potentially hurt himself real bad. Welcome back, Martin.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry about that. The only thing I can think is something along the lines of that, and it broke my heart when I saw it. That Bret Hart match when Bret couldn't wrestle
at WrestleMania.
He just bait him with a chair for what seemed like 6 hours.
Yeah, no, it's, as I said, look, it's with Pat McAfee, which is cool. I really like Pat. He's like my favorite thing in WWE, which says so much about the product.
I'm surprised I haven't seen him in the ring more as well, because he really impressed when he it was actually Adam Cole he had the match, wasn't it?
He did actually. I watched that feud recently. That was like a really, really cool feud in general. But I don't know, man. Like this screams desperation to me. It could be great. I'm hoping it's going to be good, but I just don't see it. This is the weirdest WrestleMania I think I've ever seen. The weirdest WrestleMania I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you got to give it to them. It is, and I'm probably going to watch it.
Oh yeah,
just because of how bizarre the whole thing is. But with the right smoke and mirrors, you could do, if you made it a tag with like Austin Aries, where all Vince has to do is come in and puff his chest and then tag back out, or there's ways around these things.
Yeah, but I'm having a look at the card here, and it doesn't look like something I particularly want to see.
It would be one of those. It would be like an oddity or a curiosity more than like a match you really want to see. It would just be something you'd watch to see, how the hell are they going to pull this off?
Yeah, no, like I think Vince's time in the ring has passed, like long past. Although even when he won the belts, when he won the world title for WWE, he was 50, and then when he won the ECW belt, he was 60, I think.
All the issues I have with McMahon, and they are numerous and plenty, you got to give it to him. Like, whenever he stepped in the ring, he never made anyone do something he wouldn't do. That bump he took off the cage at the Valentine's Day Massacre, that was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, he did always take the really good bumps. He always looked great. I don't know. I just think this is the only match he should have is a match with Austin.
Yes.
And
maybe that's what it'll be. Maybe he's going to stunner McMahon at Mania.
Well, here's the thing. That could happen, where it's Pat McAfee versus Austin, and then Austin wins and stuns McMahon. Now, that would be a cool little twist in the whole thing.
It's got to be Kevin Owens, though. Otherwise, what has he been prattling on about Texas for the past 6 months about?
But what I mean is, like, Or you could actually have Kevin Owens and Pat McAfee Kevin Owens and Pat McAfee versus Austin in a handicap match, or with a partner I was choosing, and I'd get The Rock out, Austin and The Rock. Like, I mean, if they're going to do it in a way that makes sense. I just don't see how Pat McAfee versus Vince McMahon makes any sense.
No, because as great as Pat is, I imagine Adam Cole walked him through that match. If you're going to have a match where someone is clearly not fit to properly wrestle, the other person needs to be an exceptional pro wrestler who can basically carry them through it.
Absolutely. Well, look, we only have a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to give this to you.
Revolution.
I'm going to give this to you, Martin. We can either go into overtime, or we can quickly run through these. What would you rather do?
Let's see what we can get done in the time.
Okay.
One thing I will say is that traditionally AEW has not done great go home shows. They kind of, I don't know why they do it this way, but they kind of peak maybe 2 weeks before a show. This week's Dynamite was sensational. It was the best go home show they've done, and CM Punk versus MJF is the hottest goddamn angle in wrestling at the minute.
So before you go on, I'm just going to quickly just say things that I'm really looking forward to. Really looking forward to Danielson and Moxley, obviously, because it's going to be great. Really looking forward to seeing, as you said, Punk and MJF is going to be unbelievable. And Hangman and Adam Cole. I wasn't really a big fan of this title reign up to this point, but I'm not gonna lie, I really want to see Adam Cole walk away with that belt.
I think that's going to be so like you say, yeah, it hasn't been the best build, but Hangman's reign has been marked by sensational matches, like his match with Lance Archer. Didn't have a tremendous build to it, but on the night they pulled that out of the bag. That was unreal, and I think it's going to be the same again here. I think on the night this is going to be sensational, and because people's focus is on Moxley and Danielson, Punk and MJF, I think this is going to surprise a lot of people. I think it's going to be amazing.
There's a lot of matches here that could actually do that as well. The tag team tournament almost that they have. That's unreal. Jurassic Express, not my favorite tag team, but I love Red Dragon and obviously the Bucks. Like Red Dragon and the Bucks alone is amazing. And then you throw Jurassic Express on top of that.
Jungle Boys, I think Jungle Boys up there with the Bucks. And
fair, I can see that.
Luchasaurus has his place. Like he's actually, I think Luchasaurus will be great in that because he can be the big man.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and he would be the biggest man in that match as well.
Oh, by about a foot.
So look, we're coming up to time, Martin. So again, we can go to overtime, or we can keep going. We can wrap up here. What would you rather?
Do you want to run through? Do you mind? Do you want to run through the card overtime or
no? So guys, if you're listening to us on Phoenix 92.5 FM, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Again, you can find us every single week here on Phoenix, every single Tuesday, and of course over nerdtoknowmedia.com, thewrestlingrewindshow.com, and the True Penny channel as well. We're on Twitch. We go live every Friday at 10:30, and we're going to continue on the show, on the podcast, and on the stream, guys. So if you're listening to us on Phoenix FM, we will see you next week, and we're going to keep going on the stream here.
Keep our left.
Right, guys. So continuing on here with this show, we have the buy-in ones. I'm going to leave because the buy-in ones I don't particularly watch myself.
Well, actually,
Hook is on it. That surprised me. That did surprise me. Why is Hook on the buy-in?
I think that's perfect. I think that's perfect for Hook's level.
Okay.
I love him. I think he's great. But he comes out in Rampage and he has 3-minute matches. That's the level he's at, and I think that's the perfect way to introduce him. And I think it's also great for the buy-in itself.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have Rock Culture did a pretty good kind of like little write up here. So we're just going to have this on the screen here as we're talking. So Martin, sorry, continue, go for it.
Yeah. So AEW's buy-ins are not WWE's pre-shows. The buy-in generally tends to matter, and I'm looking forward to this, and I have no doubt that QT Marshall's not going to set the world alight, but I have no doubt that in the ring him and Hook can have a hell of a match,
a banger as they would say,
absolute banger, and like it only has to be 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hook's whole thing is as much his, the mystique, the entrance. He has an amazing entrance. I think that'll go over really well. I think it's quite clever of them as well, because because they still do the pay-per-view thing rather than the network. And if you are sitting watching that, you go, I'll throw them 20 quid. Yeah.
All right. Okay, and then there's Chris Stanlander versus Leah Harishi.
Layla Hirsch. Yeah.
Leah Hirsch.
Again, I think this is going to surprise a lot of people. Layla Hirsch is sort of one of their up-and-coming women stars. She's probably a few years away from really peaking, but she's got a legitimate martial arts background. She's a great in-ring character. So again, her promos and stuff, she's still finding herself there, but in-ring, she's brilliant. And Chris Statlander is someone who I think is at that place where Layla Hirsch is going to be in a few years. Chris Statlander is right on the verge of being huge. I think once Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, once that storyline works itself out, I think Chris Statlander's the next in line for a major title run.
I would echo that as well. I really like Chris Statlander actually. She's always impressed me. The AEW's women's division. I talked about this actually on the True Penny channel this week with James when we're talking about Neo from the 90s. From 2009. The women's division is something that AEW falters on, but they have some really good talent and they're getting better, and Chris is one of them that I'm like, yeah man, she's really good.
Yeah, so, I mean it stutters, it stops and starts. Partly because when they were setting up, WWE had pretty much bought all the decent women wrestlers in the country.
Yeah. And
then they relied heavily on the Japanese girls, and then obviously the pandemic kind of made it more difficult to bring in the wrestlers from China and Japan. But sure. It's finding its feet again.
Right.
And we'll get to the Britt Baker match. I think it's another one that's gonna surprise people.
We will. So Matt Hardy, the first show on the card, Matt Hardy, Andrea El Dial, sorry I'm butchering that.
Andrade Alidlo.
Isaiah Cassidy versus Sting, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara. So Tornado Trios match. This is cool. This is like a traditional trios match that you would see in Mexico. So yeah. I don't know. I know I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to make predictions on this because I don't watch the show enough to make predictions. So Martin, what can people expect on this one?
An absolute banger to open the show. I'm not a huge fan whenever Matt Hardy shows up on Dynamite every week. I kind of, but he actually does pull it out of the bag once he gets in the ring. He's had some sensational matches actually with Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin. So I think this is a really good way to open the show. This will be the trios bonkers stuff that AEW specializes in. Just Sting being there is still a novelty. It's still great to see. They've been using Sting perfectly. Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, two guys who are determined to kill themselves in the ring. I think it's going to be a hell of an absolute anarchy. Great way to open the show. Very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I think when you're looking at it from that perspective, when you have these kind of elements that work together so well, it's going to be cool. And look, Sting, I'm still kind of like, I wish he was in WWE. But I think this is who you want him to work with. Jeff Hardy. Where's Jeff Hardy? Is he on this card?
Jeff Hardy is, well, we don't know, but he has been saying that he's all elite. There's been nothing officially from AEW, but in interviews and stuff, he's been saying that's where he's going. They've been teasing that. So Matt Hardy's kind of faction is called the Hardy Family Office.
Right.
And over the past couple of weeks, it has bit by bit been breaking up. And I think we're looking at kind of one final, because he's a heel at the moment, we're looking at one final babyface run for the Hardy Boys.
Fair. Next match, Jade Cargill and Tony Conti. Now, I love Tony Conti. She's so cool. But TBS Championship. So what is this? Is this a different women's belt?
Yeah, so the TBS Championship is kind of like it's basically the women's version of the TNT title.
Right.
So they don't consider it like a secondary title. It's just it's almost like a TV title. You'll see it defended on the weekly shows more than pay-per-views. But Jade Cargill has been brilliant with it. She is still learning the ropes. She's an excellent wrestler, but you can tell she's not a seasoned veteran. But they've been kind of protecting her by having her do these 2-3 minute squashes, because she's like, I mean, physically she's a superstar. She looks amazing.
This is very I don't know if you're a big Mortal Kombat fan, man, but this looks like a Mortal Kombat lineup.
It does.
It really does. Like Jade here she looks like Sindel. It's like,
I actually think this match might be a test for both, because Tay Conti has really come along in leaps and bounds in the past year, and like I say, Jade has been mostly doing the squashes.
Yeah,
and I think this is a bit of a test for them. I think they might give them 8 minutes, show us what you can do.
Right. Okay. Face of the Revolution ladder match. Now this one is interesting, folks, because it's Powerhouse Hobbs, Wardlow, Keith Lee, Orange Cassidy, Rick Starks, and then the winner of Ethan Page versus Christian Cage. Basically, they wrestle on Rampage, and then whoever goes in goes in. This,
and I think, is there a Joker as well in this, or is that the?
That's all I have so far. There's no one else. Okay. Yeah, there's no one else. Well, as we're recording, they could add it in. We don't know.
Yeah.
Rampage is tonight, isn't it?
Rampage is in about 3 hours. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't come on here till about 3 a.m.
Yeah, so we're gonna kind of find out then. So, folks, cut us a bit of slack, because we don't know. We don't know. But who have we got on this, man? Like, obviously, I would say this is probably like What Culture went with Wardlow. I think this is probably to build up Keith Lee, to give him something to do. So that's where my money would be. That's the smart money.
It's one of the great things about this card is that there are several huge matches on it that you can't predict.
Yeah.
And the reason you can't predict them is because they have great stories either way. Like, depending on who wins, they have great angles they can go off with either way. This is one of those matches. I think whoever wins this, it's a winner. Obviously, Keith Lee would be amazing, but Wardlow is in the middle of his sort of turn, babyface turn from MJF. MJF is peaking on the show with the feud of the year against CM Punk, and then you can never count out Orange Cassidy, because he Orange Cassidy defeated Adam Cole a couple of weeks ago. So there's really I couldn't call a winner, but I'd say whoever wins it, there's big plans for them.
Right. So next one.
In terms of the match as well, I think it's going to be great. You've got a couple of guys in there like Cassidy and Starks who are just fantastic wrestlers, and then you got 3 huge lads, in terms of Wardlow, Lee, and Powerhouse Hobbs. And hell, it could even be Powerhouse Hobbs' moment. He's a guy when a lot of wrestlers from other companies are talking about who would they like to face in AEW, Powerhouse Hobbs is someone who always gets mentioned.
Okay, definitely one to consider. This one is going to be match for me that I'm really looking forward to. I like all of these teams with the exception of Jurassic Express, but I will take your opinions into consideration on this one and reconsider it, because as you are right, I think this is a really fun one. We could see some really creative spots in this as well, and particularly where it's placed. I wouldn't place it before or after I wouldn't place it after the ladder match. I'd place it before, maybe, or about an hour in away from it. But it could be really fun. So I'm looking forward to. And look, I said I haven't seen Red Dragon in a while. I really like Red Dragon, so I'm like, okay, this is gonna be cool.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Look, and I know you still have questions about Jurassic Express. I think this match will change your mind.
Okay.
They've since they won the titles, they've had a couple of absolutely brilliant matches. And I mean, you're in there with the Bucks and Red Dragon. I mean, like, how bad can it actually be?
Exactly. Next one up here is Chris Jericho versus Eddie Kingston. Chris Jericho looking in the best shape of his life recently.
Amazing.
incredible. He looks so much younger. He looks a bit like 10 years younger.
And he did it in about 3 months.
Fair play to him, man. He looks great. Eddie Kingston he's
Amazing.
been great. And like again, Eddie Kingston's run in Impact was something else. So the fact he's brought that in now to AEW, huge boom for AEW. I don't know, like I can see why they went with Eddie to win here, but I'm just looking forward for a good match.
Yeah, I think this is going to be great. I think it's going to be the kind of thing that Kingston specializes in, where you're not talking about a technical 5-star classic, but this is going to have so much passion, so much energy, so much real life intensity.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be brilliant. And I know we haven't really been calling matches, but I'm going to call Kingston for this one. I think they realize how popular he is, and I think 2022 he's going to land one of the titles.
That's a fair assessment. Judging again, if you haven't seen his Impact run, really do. His Impact run is fantastic. So that doesn't shock me at all. It's as I said, like I think that was a trial run. AEW being that de facto number 2, almost number 1. A bigger crowd wants to see it, and Jericho's the perfect guy to elevate him up to that extra spot. The next match, Women's World Championship, Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. Again, Britt Baker. Everybody loves Britt Baker. Probably the most over person in the whole company. But I don't know. What, losing the belt? Is it time?
I think so, yeah. She's had a good run with it. But she was, I mean, it's hard to admit, but she was better in the chase than she has been as champion.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
Thunder is unreal in the ring.
Right.
And I think this is the night they have to give it to her. These two had an insane lights out match. Like they absolutely battered each other. So there's a hell of a build and a hell of a legacy going into this one. Obviously they won't be able to pull out the same stunts, because this is like a championship match with the regular rules. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this one. And I think Thunder Rosa win. I think that would get over big with the crowd. I think there'd be a almost the same level of emotion there was the night Britt Baker won it.
Well, here's the thing. If Britt loses, she's chasing again. And as you said, that she is stronger in that. And you have Thunder Rosa getting that bit of a rub, I think that's a fair call, man. I think that's a fair call for the reasons you said, but we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, Britt's best when she's a heel who's lost, claiming she didn't lose. She can say Thunder Rosa cheated, and and then she obviously has her angle she can spin off with Jamie Hayter, and I think the thing with Britt Baker is she's that over that she can lose the title and still have big angles and still be a major part of the show.
Speaking of major parts of the show, what is the main event for a lot of people? Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley. The story for this has been incredible. Returning Jon Moxley, obviously, from rehab and all that good stuff. Bryan Danielson on top of probably the best run of his career.
Yes.
And it's just having match after incredible match. I think this match is going to be unreal. It's going to be... I can see blood even though there's no weapons. I can just see this being exceptionally violent. In the way that like they're just going to work so super stiff. And beat the hell out of each other. But no weapons. And at the end of it... Well, it's weird because they're not heels. No one here is a heel. So it is one of those kind of things where we're just going to be in for a spectacle, probably a 25-minute spectacle. That is my prediction. That's the only thing I'm predicting here. 25 minutes.
This has big fight like MMA feel nearly. This just looks like a legitimate fixture.
Because it's legit. Like Moxley beats the hell out of people. So does Daniel Bryan. And they're going to do it. Because that's what... Look, these guys are millionaires who could have stayed in WWE forever. And that would have been it. They left of their own accord to go and wrestle.
Yeah.
They're not going to phone it in or half-ass it. They're going with their full ass.
I think so. Like yourself, I wouldn't call a winner. What I would say is we're in for an absolute bloodbath. They're going to batter each other, and then at the end of that, I think, like I say, I couldn't say who will win, but there'll be like a kind of a forged respect, and we're going to get that John Moxley, Bryan Danielson, not necessarily like a tag team,
but like respect,
but kind of like that faction they're going to set up where they take in younger guys and really blood them.
Yeah, I can see that. That is kind of what they're aiming to set up, and I think that is what's going to happen. But before we have to get there, it needs to, again, I love that promo where Moxie's like, I don't team with anybody I haven't bled with. And I'm like, all right, well, that's what's going to happen here.
I think what they're going to, because Bryan Danielson's just a wrestling genius, I think we're going to see an unprecedented level of violence here, but not, like you say, not the weapons, the glass, the chairs, the barbed wire, none of that stuff. I think we're going to see like a really vicious fight.
Yeah, you're going to have, again, if people checked out the show I did with James Truepenny, an old school Neo Yoshi style LOC wrestling match where they kick the head off each other. And that kind of thing where they don't need the weapons. But the weapons can come in if needed. But with this kind of stuff, it's going to be hard hitting, super strong style, and that's what they want to do. The next
there'll be pictures of both of them on social media afterwards with their chests all destroyed from chops.
The next match, however, is going to be violence of a whole different kettle of fish.
Have you seen this week's Dynamite?
I haven't seen this week's Dynamite in full, but I've seen bits of it.
Even if you just watch the CM Punk MJF face-off, it's amazing. And it actually, everyone was brilliant on it. Even Jim Ross. Jim Ross's calls on it were his like peak 90s Jim Ross stuff. He was excellent.
Yeah. Well, this is the end of Walmart greeter, Phil, I think. We finally start seeing shades of CM Punk actually being CM Punk, which is great. I just love the little touches where, calling back that he was a fan, that he left in 2014, all this kind of stuff. It was great. But I agree here with what culture. Punk has to win this. If he doesn't, it's dead in the water. Dead in the water
again,
if he doesn't win it.
I don't know, because like they're also lining up MJF to be. I mean, MJF
it doesn't hurt MJF if he loses.
No, not to Punk. Not to Punk, and not in this storyline.
The only person this hurts by losing is Punk.
Yeah, I mean, he's a level of babyface we haven't seen like since the likes of Bret Hart. Your real pure white meat babyface.
Yeah, so Punk has to win this one. It's the only match I'm actually going to call. And it's Punk. If Punk doesn't win this, he's done.
I'll tell you what this match could really benefit from, and it's something that AEW don't do a lot, and that WWE do too much of, although they are excellent at it. This match needs before it an amazing video package of the promos, the face-offs, the fights they've had. Like this is, I mean, we're sitting here at the start of March, and this is the feud of the year for me.
Yeah, I agree, man. And the main event, which isn't really the main event, but is the main event anyway.
It's got 3 main events in this bloody show.
It does, and they're legit main events. Hangman Page versus Adam Cole for the AEW World Heavyweight title.
These guys have a hell of a job ahead of them, because they're going to have to come out, like you say, after the Punk match, after the Danielson match, after we've had, the kind of trios, mad cocaine banger matches. But the whole thing with Hangman Page is once he gets in that ring, he always pulls it out of the bag. And I think this is going to be brilliant.
And it's Adam Cole.
Oh, it's Adam Cole, exactly.
It's Adam Cole, baby.
Phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah. This one's going to be, look, I don't care who wins. I really, really want Adam Cole to win. I think he will. that I know I'm not going to call it, but you know, yeah. Well, what culture? I think I don't know. I just it makes more sense to take the belt off Paige now. Like, okay, so Revolution is what the SummerSlam.
Yeah, Revolut. Yeah, and the big one is
All In or All Out.
All Out would be their big one.
So it makes sense to do a big title change here. If it doesn't, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to not do a title change here.
Well, there's two things for me. I think Paige is brilliant. I love him as champion. I know it hasn't been the biggest storyline in the world, but I love seeing him with the title. I think the build up to it was so good that they can kind of coast along on that for a few months.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him drop the title just yet.
Right.
But like most of the other matches that they have in the card,
right.
There's angles either way here, depending on who wins. And I think I might partly agree with you. I think with Adam Cole's run, it kind of needs a shot in the arm, and him with that world title would be a big one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Well, look, I want to thank What Culture and Andy H. Murray for that, because that is a great rundown. We appreciate it. But Martin, that's going to do it for this edition of The Rewind here. And folks, again, thank you so much for checking us out. We really appreciate it. If this is your first stream, subscribe. What are you doing? Hit the like button. Because that helps us a lot. Hit the subscribe button. And of course, if you're checking out on Twitch as well, please subscribe. We are live every single Friday. And next week, of course, usually we do the show here on WCW, ECW, WWE, whatever. We are going to do a full in-depth review of AEW next week, and I'm looking forward to that.
Still my beating heart.
Well, Martin, after that we got to jump back to WCW. So
I'm looking forward to that as well. Like, I'm really enjoying the older shows.
Yeah, for sure, man. But I'm looking forward to AEW again. It's going to be great. I'm probably going to check it out on Wednesday, because I'm not here. I'm not going to be at home. I'm going to be out of the country.
He's off to Ukraine to fight.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm going to Greece to look at museums. But yeah, no. I want to go before the world completely goes mad. But yeah. So we'll be back next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. The True Penny channel, and of course the streams, guys. So again, thank you very, very much. Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we get out here?
No, I've burned through everything on my Switch. I have nothing to play. For the love of God, would you just release Breath of the Wild 2?
Fair enough, guys. We'll be back here next week. Thank you so much. Just the Wrestling Rewind. Bye, guys.
Yeah, we're allowed.